What you gotta do? A number one or a number two? What you gotta do? A number one or a number two?
Hello? Hello? Yeah!
My experience of just being in China, living in China, is one that at times it's just like unexplainable. When people ask me, they're like, well, how is it there? It's like bro, like I can't even explain this. If you're interested in hearing my story about my experience of living in China, make sure you stay tuned. Stay tuned, stay tuned. My very first time, my very first day, my flight to China was to the capital of China, which is Beijing. I flew directly into Beijing on a nonstop flight, very long. So my experience of living in Beijing, Beijing will give you more of the home feel, but not being home. I can say one thing about Beijing is that the expat community is large. Come on, man. Cheers to China! Woo! So you will find people that are from your country, you'll find a lot of foreigners that speak English. Being in Beijing, you don't feel as isolated as you would in certain smaller cities. I would definitely say if you are considering moving and you're looking to have access to more of a home feel, Beijing is definitely a place to go. You won't really get there and kind of just get lost in the sauce. And don't get me wrong, it's still China. You're still in China, but you have more opportunities to be able to connect and network with people. After leaving Beijing, I went to the Guangdong province and I stayed in a city called Zhongshan. I don't know how to say it. Please forgive me. I am horrible when it comes to names in China. But nevertheless, I stayed in Guangdong province. Now, this is considered the southern part of China. And it is just like anywhere else in the world. You go to any southern region, it is just going to be hot. So the Guangdong province, if you are considering moving within that province, it's hot. Is hot. My experience of living in the southern region in the Guangdong province is you have a difference of dialect, you have a difference of personalities, perspectives, things of that sort. From what I hear from other Chinese people, they don't speak proper Mandarin. They speak what they call as Cantonese. So for example, I am originally from Michigan, born and raised in Michigan. When I left Michigan and moved to Alabama, you know, the dialect changed, the pronunciation of words changed. I know growing up we always say caramel, but when I went down south and I was living in Georgia, a girl kept saying caramel, and I'm like, caramel. She was like, caramel. I'm like, okay, whatever, tomatoes, who cares? Growing up where I come from, we say pop, like, hey, yo, let me get a pop. But when I went down south, they're like, no, it's sodas. It's like that in China. You know, they'll say the same thing, but it'll be pronunciated differently, or it'll be a whole completely different word. You know, if you're moving around China and you're learning this new language, and then you go to one region of China and you're learning the language, you're like, yeah, I got it. And then you move to another one and you say it, and they're like, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? So it's the same thing. I've worked in a school where, because I wasn't white, I didn't get the same privileges as the other girl that worked there, even though she wasn't white. I had a guy who was from India explain that she had the stringy hair and she was close to the white, trying to be very diplomatic in the things that I say, but in respect to that situation, she would get things that I just wouldn't get. And don't get me wrong, not everyone was like this. Certain people that just have this certain type of mind frame that if you're not white, or you're not even close to being white, that you're not going to get the same treatment as a white person. So I would say in the southern region, they're really, really stickler about how they feel about race. You have Chinese people who will, not talk to you or not deal with you because of your race. You're not the race that they admire or that they want, then you're not going to get the same type of treatments. That was the type of experience that I had being in the southern part of China. And again, it's just ignorance. There's just things in the world that people don't know. Another thing that I experienced was when I was in the southern part of China was that women would walk around with sweaters. Now, of course, me being new to China, I was just kind of ignorant to the situation. I'm like, yeah, so it's like 197 degrees outside. I'm confused. Why is someone walking around with sweaters. And a really good guy friend of mine that I met in China who's from Ohio, he explained to me that they do not want to get darker, that they want really pale skin with no pigmentation in it whatsoever. So then I started learning about a lot of the products they had whitening creams in them and things of that sort. So I find in the southern part of the region, they are really stickler about their skin complexion. A lot of the things they do because they're following what they think that people in America do. So they follow these type of trends thinking that's what they do, but they don't really know any better. And so another thing I can say as far as being in the Guangdong province is that people there, they are friendly. They see foreigners, are like, hey, hi. Whereas in Beijing, they're just like, oh, more foreigners, time for lunch. Like, that's just, they're more so used to foreigners. Even though the expat community in China in general is extremely large, in certain parts they're not really used to foreigners or certain races of foreigners. You know, no matter what, you're in another country, and especially a country that just does not speak English whatsoever, you very seldomly meet people who can speak English in China. But for the most part, you're pretty much isolated. Whether if you're in Beijing, you're in Shanghai, you're in Guangzhou, you're still gonna have some limitations, especially when it comes to speaking English. But for the most part, being in China, I can say every single part that I have lived in, I never felt like I wasn't safe. If there was only one instance that I was in Shanghai. I was waiting for a Didi, which is the equivalent to an Uber. And this in particular day, they were just booked and it was full, and I just could not get a driver. So I just kind of like walked around. Normally I would just kind of sit in one place and wait just in case someone comes, but it was this guy that was just kind of staring at me, and I kept seeing him inching closer and closer to me. And so I just walked away, and everywhere I walked, he walked. And so I went into the store, and he came up to me, he like tapped my shoulder. Had to go into a restaurant. I found the first foreigner that I could see, and I was like, hey, could you pretend you're my boyfriend for a second, because this guy is like following me around. He's really making me nervous. So the guy, he went out and he said whatever to him in Chinese, and the guy went away. But aside from that, there's been times I've been out late at night. Oh shit. Chewy chicken, orange chicken. Ni hao. Walking, especially when the virus hit, I would go out at night all the time just to kind of get some type of form of exercise in, and I never felt unsafe. You know, I walk around, I got my Beats headphones, and I walk around with that continuously all day, all night long. They're like, the Beats is like literally beat up because I constantly wear them. In Beijing and Guangzhou, no matter where I lived in China, I've never felt like I was not safe. After living in the Guangdong province, I moved to Shangzhou. In Shangzhou is where I spent majority of my time living in China. I had an apartment there for over a year. I had that apartment. As you travel and you move around more, you notice like the things that you consider to be rude, other people just don't feel like it's rude. So people will just come up to me and just like put a camera in my face and just take a picture, and I'm just like bruh, personal space. Like, they look at it as like, oh, you should feel like a celebrity. Like, no, I feel violated. Like, no, leave me alone. Don't take my pictures, especially days where you're just out and your hair is on top of your head and the only thing you're doing is just going to go get some water, or you just want to go get some food, or you just want to get some sun, but you don't want to like have to get yourself together. And that's like the day that people want to take the most pictures of you. They're not even discreet. They're just like, it was just like, I'm at the gym, they're taking pictures of me. I am just walking down the street, they're taking pictures of me. Like, it just really became annoying. It was just like, please, I don't even know where you're sending these pictures. I don't know what you're doing with these pictures. Just stop taking pictures of me. So it got to the point like I would walk around with hats and hoodies and sunglasses on, just so even if they did take a picture, they have no clue who I am. Like, my experience of being in Changzhou, I had my ups and I had my downs, but for the most part, I was really isolated. I didn't really get out much. I really didn't do much. There was a decent amount of expats within my community or the city that I lived in, but they were considerably younger than me, and they did things that I just wasn't really interested in doing. So my daily routines would be just get up, go to the gym, come back, and work on business. I did not have a social life. Like, my social life was completely dead. And then trying to access social media, Facebook, Instagram, all those things was just non-existent. So I literally was just like working on business, and then that was it. So food in China, oh my goodness.
就 OK 了。
是，
OK。
对
OK 了。
That looks so good.
这个只需要9天元。
I'm about to tear that up. So in the different parts that I went to in China, they have their own signature dishes. As an example, you know, when you go down south, you know, you have a lot of people who eat, as we call, soul food. Like, the real soul food is down south. In China, you have certain regions in China that have their signature stamps of food. In the southern region, they call it Cantonese food. In Beijing, you have the roasted duck, and then in Changzhou, their signature dishes is like dumpling. So I can't really say I'm a vegan. I just don't eat meat. Trying to explain this is extremely hard. Like me, if I go and I order a pizza back home, I'll say, hey, I want a supreme pizza, but I just don't want any meat on it, just all the veggies and everything. It'd be cool. In China, it doesn't work that way. It's like, if it's not on the menu, you cannot get it. I went into a restaurant before and I asked for a meal. It had bacon bits on it. And I just said, you know, like, I still want this, but just, can you not put any pork on it? And they straight up told me no. They was like, is that on the menu? And I was like, no. They're like, no. I was like, okay, cool, all right, whatever. You know, I've been to places where I've specifically just said, you know, meya roll. Meya roll means no meat. Booyah roll, meya roll. I specifically go in and say this stuff. I type it out in Chinese, you know, like, hey, no meat, whatever, just don't put any meat on it. And they're like, okay, chicken. And I'm like, no meat, that's meat. That's an animal. No, I don't want that. Oh, okay, puka is good. Puka is good. Like, no meat, please, no meat. Oh, okay, moo cow, beefa is really good. No beef, no chicken, no pork, no cow, no pig, no moo, no nothing, no meat, please. And I would still get a dish that has some meat on it. And it's just, you know, you think that some things are just so simple, and it's just like, I just don't understand, what am I supposed to do? How many ways I'm supposed to say this? This is the issue for vegans or vegetarians or people who don't eat meat. In China, they don't understand it, especially in the South. They're like, what are you? Like, where are you from? And they really just thought it was like a sin. If you don't eat meat, something's wrong with you. Like, that was the mentality in the South. In Beijing, they had vegan restaurants. They were kind of used to it. Shanghai, they have a numerous amount of vegan restaurants. I really had to just kind of beef up my cooking. So if you're a vegan or vegetarian, I would definitely recommend that you cook. Thank goodness that the city that I was in, it had at least like 2 or 3 restaurants and a lot of salad places. So I would just order a lot of salads, because a lot of places, especially restaurants in China, 1 minute they're open and then you'll go the next day and it's completely closed down. Before I moved to China, I was never a fan of Chinese food. Like egg rolls and crab ragoon, oh my goodness, that's like my Chinese dishes. But of course, you know, like, stuff in America, it's not the same until you actually go to that country. So I remember when I went to Mexico and I was eating this, I was like, oh, this is nothing like Taco Bell. So now I went to China and I'm eating the food. I'm like, hey, I just want some vegetable egg rolls and some crab ragoon. They're like, what is that? Now that I think about it, I don't ever remember ever seen an egg roll in China. All the restaurants that I've been to, I've never seen an egg roll, not even a spring roll on a menu. Wow, I just realized that. Like Panda Express, what? chicken. There's no orange chicken, people. No orange chicken, no bourbon chicken, none of that. When I go back home and I look at Chinese restaurants, I'm like, what are y'all serving? Because they don't even serve this in China. Like, so anywho, if you go to China and you're expecting Panda Express food, you're expecting orange chicken, bourbon chicken, crab ragout, egg rolls, things like, it's not there. It's not there. The food is very cheap. Oh, you can get a whole course meal for like $5 maybe. Between me, I eat a lot. Food is very cheap, but Chinese people, they don't eat like how we eat in America. In China, you would have to order probably like 5 or 6 dishes just to get full. Their portions are extremely small. I'm like, are you feeding a child? Like, what is this? And it's what you get. This is it? Like, I need about 18 of these just to get full. Like, what? The food for the most part is pretty good. Like, I've had some really good food. You know, I've had some, but for the most part, the Chinese food is actually pretty good. And this is coming from a person who does not like Chinese food. Like, I've never been a type of person like, hey, what y'all want to eat? Chinese food was never on the list. Chinese food was never like, oh, we get you. No. But living in China and eating Chinese food, like, it was pretty straight. Like, I liked it. It's so cheap to eat out. It's just like, you really don't have to cook, to be honest. Housing in China to me is extremely funny. Number one, a lot of the places in China do not have dryers. If you want to spend a little bit more money, you may be able to find places, but for the most part, they don't. My washer was in my living room, and I had a full-fledged sink in my living room. I was just like, this is so weird. Showers, they're not like showers. They're like a shower rod on a wall in a toilet, and that's it. Like, majority of the places don't even have sinks inside the bathroom. Housing is really small. You can probably find some pretty decent places depending on what you're looking for. The housing is extremely cheap. If you really want like a decent, nice place for a single person, you'll probably pay between $300 to about $600, in between that bracket. And again, it's dependent on the city. So for a nice place in Shanghai, you're probably looking to spend about $500 to about $700 for really, and I'm talking about nights, like a smart house type nights. $400 and under, you can probably get decent, but it'll be like studio apartment in New York. That's in Shanghai. In Beijing, you probably have some pretty decent places, so you'll spend probably about $300 to $500. It's relatively cheap compared to America. My apartment in the Guangdong province was by far the worst ever. It's just horrid. It was horrific. It was, I could never imagine anyone living like that. And I probably stayed in that apartment for maybe a week. And then I got my stuff and I left. I was like, I cannot do this. This was horrible. As you can see from the pictures, all this mold, and I don't even know what it was on the wall, but it was just absolutely horrific and disgusting. This place was from where I was doing my internship. This is how they had us living. And they actually tried to argue with me about this situation. Like, well, that's not how the apartment looked before. And I'm like, so what did I do? Just like take black stuff and put it on the wall? Like come on, like make it make sense. Like, it was just disgusting. So yeah, so you have the worst of the worst, and then you can have the best of the best. It just depends on what region you are in and how much money you are willing to fork out. But for the most part, you can find really nice places for really, really cheap. But the amenities that you are used to having in the United States, or wherever you're coming from, you're not gonna have that in China. We have all of this at our fingertips, but for Chinese people, they don't have this. Majority of people, the way that we communicate is via social media. Well, unfortunately, the social media is blocked in China, so it's been extremely hard for me to contact people, because that's like the only way that we communicate with people is via Facebook or Instagram or whatever social media platform or apps that you have, whereas in China it's not like that. You have to have a VPN. Getting off of social media or not really being on social media, it wasn't really a big deal for me. I am like the president of introvertedness. I like being alone. I like being by myself. It only became a big deal for me when I really started feeling isolated, especially when you are not fluent in their language, you feel so isolated. You can be around 100 people and still feel alone. It's just kind of like you're tuned out from the world. Really, being in China, your experience is going to be based off of your personality. If you're a bubbly person and you're outgoing, you should definitely learn the language, get out, talk with the locals. But if you're an introverted person, I would still say learn the language. Chinese people are not shy to correct you. There's been things where I say xia xia and they're like xia xia. I'm like, okay, xia xia. And they're like xia xia ha ha. And then they just start talking crap. And I'm like, this is my language. This is Chinese language.
This is China. Oh.
And of course, everybody's experiences are going to be different depending on you and your personality and how you are with people and how you interact. It takes a lot of patience, and it takes a very open mind to live in someone else's culture, to live in somebody else's country, and to get out of your ways. So I just kind of want you to be mindful of the adjustments that you are going to have to make. I've met people who stayed in China for a few months and they were like, I cannot do this, this is too much. And I've had my times where I'm like, I give up. I'm not gonna stick this out. I cannot do this. These people, this happened, that. And over 2 years later, I still managed to survive in China. Regardless of where you go in the world, you're gonna have ups and downs, and you're gonna have to make adjustments. Life is all about change. Two things that we are promised in this world is change and death. That's it. Overall, my experience was just awesome. My experience was awesome. The kids that I've met have been awesome. You're so good. You're so good. You're so bad. What are you doing? Go sit down. Are you guys having fun in class? So how's your day going? Having a good day today, guys? Do you enjoy this class? Look at the TV if you are enjoying this class. Do not look at me if I'm your favorite teacher. I'm happy to know I'm your favorite teacher.
Okay, show me mother. Good, mother. Show me brother. Okay, show me sister. Yes, good. Mother. Good. Show me brother. Good. Show me sister. Show me mother. You gotta back up. Good, mother. Show. She is so awesome.
That was good.
Good job.
China has its ups and its downs, but for the most part, I've gained way more in China than I could ever lose. If you ever plan on going to China, I would just recommend that you do your research. If you ever have any questions that I may not have addressed in this video, email me, reach out to me, ask me anything. I am an open book. I have no problems answering your questions. Nevertheless, wherever you are in this world, I wish you nothing but love, peace, and happiness. Always remember that God has your back, and I wish you nothing but the best. God bless you.